Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of On the Mark. I'm your host, Mark Brantley, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you this evening. I have just returned to Ireland from a trip abroad, and so that makes it all the more joyous for me to be here and to have come. I am a little tired, but I think that on a Wednesday, there is no better place to be than here on the radio with you for 2 hours of primetime talk radio. Good evening to all the people here in Nevis, those in St. Kitts, those around the Caribbean. Good evening to our friends and family in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and wherever you may be. I say good evening to you. Tonight, we hope to have a show slightly different in the sense that I want to make a brief statement early and keep that and then really allow more time for calling. Some people have complained that they don't often get enough time to call. Some say that their calls aren't getting in, and clearly this is a talk show, this is a call-in talk show, and it would be for me desirous to have as many views and opinions as possible. This is definitely democracy at work. This is, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm one of the very few leaders in the region that tries to be here every week for 2 hours to expose myself to the public in terms of having a debate, having a discussion, to allow the public to ask me whatever they wish to ask. And the only thing that I require of us is that we remain civil to each other, that we respect each other, and that we engage in a debate that is of a standard that speaks well of the people of Nevis and St. Kitts and our wider diaspora community. And so, welcome to this show. I start from a very sad note because tonight, as I got here, I got word that my very dear friend Euclid Sadler, also known as Judge, that he had passed away. Judge is a well-known character in Brownhill. He has been a resident of Brownhill for as long as I can remember, and he and his wife were very well known in the Brownhill community. I have many stories I can tell about Judge. He and I had a very close relationship, and I'm truly saddened. I know that he was not doing well, but to hear that he had passed, in fact, to hear that he had passed even whilst I was away, and I didn't have a chance to see him to say my goodbyes, is really troubling. But God knows best, and I'm prayerful that he's in a better place. And so to his wife and to his children and to all of those who loved him, to the entire community of Brownhill, and to all of us here in Nevis, I extend my deepest condolences. To those who mourn, Euclid Sadler, also known as Judge. May his soul rest in eternal peace, and may the prayers of us all comfort his family in this very, very difficult time for them. If there are other people out there who are mourning, who are going through some difficult period, who might be hospitalized, who are struggling in some way, please know that my prayers are also with you. And I encourage you to pray. A lot of times people say prayer doesn't work. I can tell you it does. And while God may not answer your prayer in the way you want and in the time that you want, he always answers. And so I ask you to pray and to take everything to him in prayer. For those of you who are out there who might be celebrating, those who are having a birthday, I would extend birthday blessings to my friend Sonia Williams, who I'm told is celebrating today. Sonia, if you're listening, happy birthday to you. And to others out there who might be celebrating a birthday, an anniversary, a graduation, something important in their lives, I rejoice with you, and I wish you God's continued blessings. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's been a lot happening. Now, let me report very quickly on my trip. Last year, I was invited to speak at something called President's Week, which is a closed event organized by individuals to discuss, amongst other things, financial services, citizenship by investment generally, and to look at the landscape regionally and internationally. I was able to speak. I was invited last year, as I said, and then I guess they thought I did a good job. They invited me to come back this year. And this year they asked me to speak not only once but twice. I did the first time. I looked at the state of financial services in the Caribbean and sought to position my speech in the context of where the Caribbean stands in the global financial services marketplace. I then led a very robust discussion with the group that was gathered. It is a private group, usually no more than 40 or 50 high net worth individuals. I then, a few days later, spoke on St. Kitts Nevis citizenship, and that it is now something that is a second passport, part of the planning for high net worth individuals. Both speeches went very well, and I was able to persuade, I think, many in attendance to look at St. Kitts and Nevis to do business going forward. I want to thank very much the organizers for having the confidence in me to invite me yet again. And one of the things that is interesting at these events is the fact that they bring together a disparate group of people, all powerful in their own right, all wealthy people, but all who are looking for guidance, looking for discussion, who want to flesh out some of the nuances and some of the issues that are impacting their day-to-day, and to look for next opportunities. So they would have had conversations about cryptocurrencies, digital currency. They had conversations about gold. In fact, I thought it was fascinating that on one day they had a debate, a panel, debating gold versus crypto. Where's the world headed? It is rather interesting to be among people like that who understand global finance, who understand economics, and who have done well. Now, whilst there, I had the occasion to interact with Brian Mast, Congressman Brian Mast. Brian Mast is a Republican. He is one congressman from Florida. And the important thing about Mr. Mast is that he is the chairperson of the House Foreign Affairs or Foreign Services Committee. Now, why is that important? That's important because that committee is the entity that is largely concerned with the U.S. foreign policy and how the United States interacts with the rest of the region and the rest of the world. I used the opportunity, whilst I had it, to speak to Congressman Mast and raise with him a number of issues. Issues concerning the build-up in the Southern Caribbean, the military build-up that is, issues concerning Venezuela, issues concerning our dear friend Taiwan, and issues concerning what I described to him as the benign neglect in some quarters of the Caribbean by the great United States. Benign neglect because, as I emphasize, the squeaky wheel tends to get the grease. And because the Caribbean region has been a zone of peace, has been a zone of relative calm and tranquility, that the United States has benignly neglected its third border because it has been consumed with conflicts elsewhere. In fact, Congressman Mast spoke to the work of the Trump administration in Sudan, in Rwanda, the ongoing work in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, the ongoing work in the Gaza-Israel conflict. And I pointed out to him that whilst all of that work was important, there was also a need to do work in the Caribbean. And that the retreat that we had seen from the United States from the Caribbean, that retreat was quite a perilous approach to diplomacy for their third neighbor. I went on to emphasize that many of the embassies, U.S. embassies in the Caribbean, do not have an ambassador and have not had an ambassador for some time. In fact, we are served by the U.S. Embassy in Barbados. The U.S. Embassy in Barbados has not had an ambassador now for a significant period of time. Bear in mind that that embassy serves not only Barbados, but all of the Eastern Caribbean countries. We have a similar situation, I'm told, that existed in Bahamas, in Jamaica. And so all of these are important indications from the United States as to whether or not they continue to take the Caribbean seriously. And I think they ought to. We are, after all, their border. And as I explained to Congressman Mast, which of course he already knew, is that if something goes wrong in the Caribbean, it washes up on the shores of Florida. Florida is in fact just a stone's throw away from the Bahamas, a stone's throw away from Jamaica. I believe the message was well received. I was very impressed with Congressman Mast, his grasp of what was happening globally, his grasp of the region. And whilst he said to me that he wasn't aware that Alexander Hamilton had been born in Nevis, I used that as the basis to invite him to come and see us in the Caribbean and come and see us more specifically in St. Kitts and Nevis. I then went on, and a few nights later I was able to meet with an actress called Cheryl Hines. Now, Miss Hines is a fascinating woman. For those of you who watch HBO, Curb Your Enthusiasm, she was the star there, and she acted, I think, as the wife of Larry David, the character that was there, quite a curmudgeon. And we hit it off. We chatted. Turns out that she's married to Robert Kennedy Jr., who's the current Secretary of Health and Human Services in the United States, and therefore cabinet level appointee by President Trump. Again, I extended an invitation to her. She said she had never heard of Nevis, and her husband to come and see us. Whilst there, I also had the ability and the opportunity to interact with some very influential persons. People in that room had friends in the White House. They had members of the U.S. cabinet who were their personal friends and who they interacted with on a daily basis. The value to me was them saying to me, listen, if there's a need for a meeting, if there's a need to connect, let us know and we can assist. Now, being a social media junkie that I am, I would have posted a few messages to social media, principally Facebook, and to say that I had had these meetings and I thought these meetings had gone well. And I want to use that as the point of discussion this evening, because I found that the responses to those messages in many respects were disappointing. People started to cuss Congressman Mass, cuss Cheryl Hines. Why? Because she's married to Robert Kennedy Jr. and they say he's not a good minister of health. And I wonder sometimes if our people stop just to consider that a purely emotional response to anything, but in this context, international relations, international affairs, and engagement with people who are in positions of power and authority and who can impact in a significant way, negatively or positively, our countries. But that engagement ought not to be based on emotion. It was said by someone, I can't remember whom, that diplomacy is principally about self-interest. The Great Barbados, I recall, there was a phrase attributed, I believe, to their late Prime Minister Barrow, who says that Barbados was friends of all and satellites of none. And that has guided them throughout the years. And why do you need friends? We don't just need friends when there's a Democrat in the White House. We also need friends when there's a Republican in the White House. Whether that Republican is Ronald Reagan, as he then was, or now Donald Trump, we must have the ability from a diplomatic perspective to engage. And it seems to me that too many of us are so consumed with whatever our personal opinions may be that we miss the big picture, that we're not able to engage with people and talk about matters that have mutual interest and benefit to us and to St. Kitts and Nevis, but we are consumed with whether we like the people or not. I don't care whether you like people or not. What does that to do with anything? So are you saying that if I got the opportunity to engage with President Trump and to say whatever I could to him, to encourage him to have the kind of relationship with the Caribbean that we want, that I should not have that engagement because there's some who don't like President Trump? But whether you like him or not is quite irrelevant. Do you know why? Because the people of the United States voted for him to be president. It seems sometimes that people forget that little fact. It's not about liking. And too many of us are caught up with this emotion, whether I like somebody, I don't like somebody. What does that have to do with whether or not that person is in a position to assist, is in a position of influence, whether or not that person can do a job? Do you like them or you don't like them? You must like your wife and like your husband. Some may say love. But that's where emotion belongs, at home. Be passionate, of course, about what you do. But too many of us resort to petty issues about who they like and who they don't like as a pretext, in my humble opinion, for ignoring the fundamental responsibility, and I use that word, to engage. Only through dialogue and only through engagement are we going to be able to advance our interests. Now, I am not the foreign minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, but I am the premier of Nevis, and I have used every opportunity that I have got to engage in relation to this St. Kitts and Nevis that I love and this Caribbean that I love. And so you mean to tell me that if I'm afforded an audience with the chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee that sets diplomatic policy, foreign policy for the United States, I should not take it because he's a MAGA Republican, because he's a Trump supporter? What does that have to do with me? I think sometimes our people get so carried away with whatever emotion that they're on, that they ignore the reality that the Americans voted. V-O-T-E-D, voted. They had two candidates before them and they voted for one. So I want Vicky and Orvin's son now to go America, go cuss who the American people voted for when I don't have the right to vote? Even if I had the right to vote in America, I must respect the majority view. It doesn't mean that you endorse Tom or you endorse Harry, but you have to respect the process. And too often, and it happens here too, you know, people don't like Mark Brantley. Well, the people of Nevis voted to put Mark Brantley as premier. And some of you going around vexed with the world. Why? Try harder next time, that's all. And I'm fairly certain that if people were to put somebody else in, there'll be others out there who are similarly vexed with the world. Why? I just think as a people we need to grow up. Stop the constant emotional response to everything. I had an exchange with a chap just today about a proposed development in Nevis. And the chap is angry. I mean, I had to ask him, boy, why you drive up your blood pressure for? Why are you so angry? What are you so angry about? And I just do not get it. Because in my experience, and I believe I'm old enough now to talk about experience, the only thing that emotion gets you is problems, you know. Because when emotion sets in, it clouds judgment. When emotion sets in, logic tends to flee. And you get into an emotional discussion where the facts don't matter because you're driven by emotion. And so, you think I am going to give up the opportunity to engage with somebody who is in the White House or has access to the White House because some people say they don't like Republicans? What I got to do with me? I'm CCM. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I am CCM. So if you don't like Republicans or you don't like Democrats for that matter, what does that have to do with me? How does that affect the price of bread and cheese over by higher? The answer is it doesn't. And we need as a people, it is one of the things, brothers and sisters, that discourages me. Because we boast of this tremendously high literacy rate. We have degrees can't done. Successive governments have insisted that our people get education. Our young people are coming out of school, qualified, educated. But yet whenever any proposition is raised, we have so many of us, and unfortunately, so many of us holding significant degrees. We spend plenty of time behind the schoolhouse door. But we respond with raw emotion and nothing else. That's all. Raw emotion and nothing else. I said, for example, that I invited this actress, Cheryl Hines, who was a very lovely woman. And her husband, who happens to be Robert Kennedy Jr., I did not meet with him, but I met with the wife. And I said, listen, please, come and see us in Nevis. Stay at the Four Seasons, play a round of golf, go to the spa, see what Nevis has to offer, and of course our sister St. Kitts. They said they'd not heard of Nevis before. She said, I'm sorry, she had not heard of Nevis before. So I used the opportunity. So every time you go to Starbucks and you buy a latte and you spend $10, remember Nevis. And Nivision designed your financial system. And somebody commented and said, oh, imagine you inviting Robert Kennedy to come and fix our healthcare system. He can't even fix America's healthcare system. And I'm reading over my posts over and over because I'm trying to figure out at what point did I intimate that I invited anybody to fix anything on Nevis. So extending an invitation to come and visit. Bear in mind that tourism is our mainstay. I ought not to do that because you don't like Robert Kennedy. Well, what that have to do with me? You know, last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever I was here, and I made a comment, and I see, of course, the usual natural neighbors of extreme negativity, they went off. They say I don't care what Nevis people have to say. But you see, that's the problem. People out there who are purveyors of negativity and purveyors of propaganda, you know what they rely on most? They rely on the fact that you and I do not listen for ourselves. You and I don't bother to read the article for ourselves. You and I do not bother to listen to the parliamentary debates for ourselves. We depend on these purveyors of negativity and propaganda to tell us what was said. Because how could I, as the Premier of Nevis, say that I do not care about the opinions of the public? That was not the context. The context was I said I don't care what people say about me, Mark Brantley, because I live by me and you live by you. So if you say you don't like me, that's your business. Now what does that have to do with the affairs of Nevis? Because it seems to me that some people can't separate the two. That is the problem. You know how many problems we have in the civil service? How many problems business people have at their workplace? You know why? Mary and Susie don't like each other. And therefore the work must suffer because Mary and Susie don't like. Mind Mary and Susie being paid to do a job. Nobody's asking Mary to go to Susie's house for dinner or Susie to go on a cruise with Mary. They are employed to do a job. But because again of emotion, me not like she. The work now must suffer. That's what happens. And I'm trying to get our people to understand, listen, focus on what's important. Focus. Sometimes we get so wrapped up about who we like and who we don't like. Like what? Who does that matter to? Focus on what needs to be done. And leave your liking and not liking to home by you. Like your family, like your friends. And that's what the point I made quite clearly. But of course, I can always depend on those who want to distort and want to spread propaganda. And that's all right. Because when I speak, I try to speak as clearly as I can. And for those who are interested enough to listen and pay attention for themselves, they'll hear exactly what I say. I'm a plain speaker. And the point, again, is that if you are out there and you want to have aught against me as an individual, that's your business. I know I don't have aught against you because when I go to sleep at nights, I close my eyes, I say my prayers, and I thank God. You know what I thank God for? For giving me peace. Peace of mind, clarity of thought. And you cannot have peace of mind and clarity of thought if every night you're thinking about somebody and how much you dislike them and how much you hate them and how much evil you want to wish on them. I don't have no time for that in my life. I have things to do. And I would suggest that those of you out there who get up every day and have something negative to say about Mark Brantley, find something to do, find a hobby. Whenever I jump into your head in the dead of night, hug up your wife. Kiss her and say, darling, dude, I love you. What is it you're thinking about me at 3 o'clock in the morning? Hard back, grown man, thinking about me at 3 o'clock in the morning? Goodness gracious. That's quite unsettling. You all focus on what you're supposed to focus on. Stop allowing emotion to lead us. The value of education is that it must teach us logic, how to reason, how to engage. We don't and will never always agree. That's just the nature of who we are as human beings. But let us debate in a way that allows logic and the facts and common sense to prevail. And forget about who we like and who we don't like. Because I am here to say tonight that every opportunity that I am given, and I believe that God puts people in positions for His own purpose. And so if I am positioned that I can have a conversation with somebody of power and influence in this world and speak to them about my little country and my little Caribbean and the need for us to have a better arrangement and a better deal, I will take the opportunity. Whether they're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. Because to do otherwise is folly. And I am not even sugarcoating that. So, I must hug up Joe Biden and hug up Barack Obama because they're Democrat and you like them. But I must not talk to President Trump or anybody in his administration because they're Republican and you don't like them. All that could make sense. The person who sits in the White House is a matter for the American people. That is who it's a matter for. Not for me. For the American people. And once they have spoken, brothers and sisters, we can wring our hands, we can shout at the moon. But for the next 4 years, their voice has been heard and has been registered. It's as simple as that. I am not going to lose any sleep over who America elects as their president. Whoever America elects, if I am afforded the opportunity, I will engage with. Because that is what I think we need to do. Be respectful of nations and their right to engage. I've heard a lot of chatter. I think that we all know that we've been having tremendous level of discussion about this proposed development on the south coast of Nevis. And I'm not going to get into that development because I frankly feel that we have saturated with consultations on that and we intend to do more. I think we have some more that are coming up shortly. What I want to get into is again the emotion. I see, for example, that there's a cohort of Nevisians and Kititians who have the nastiest things to say about this proposed development and the proposed investors. And frankly, the comments have been racist. All these things about white people this, white people that. And the thing that shocked me and continues to strike me as exceedingly odd is that 99.9% of them cussing white people left Nevis, a black country, and moved to America, a white country, where they now live and have lived in most cases all of their productive lives. Now make it make sense to me, please. Make it make sense to me. That if you so love black people, you so love this little Nevis, that you kinnicat yourself out of Nevis 40 years ago, and you've settled in the great United States of America, and then you said to Nevis, do not let no white people come in to invest in Nevis. Mark you, you're not investing, because everything you have and everything you own, you're doing it in white America. Sometimes people don't like to hear these things, but we have to say them because there's a level, again, of emotion. Because if I am going to start to cuss and exhibit racism towards any group of people, it's like a man take up himself. Mark you, he wasn't forced, Nobody begged him to come, you know. He chose to go. In fact, some even chose to go illegally. Get in by whatever means they could. And they get into, so if you choose to move to India, and you have made your entire life in India, among Indians in India, and then an Indian decides, let me go and invest in Nevis, then you now stay in India. You don't move out of India yet, you know, you don't come back home yet. You stay in India and you start to cuss Indians. And tell Nevis people, no let no Indian come in down there go invest no money. But while you're banging your mouth about Indians coming in to invest, you're living in India. Voluntarily, paying all your tax in India. You don't own a full cube in Nevis. And so you made your choice. And your choice is to live amongst the very people that you now seem to have a major problem with. I am confused. And when the lines open, I want people to try to explain it to me. Because I don't hear the people who are making the most noise saying, listen, I have done well in America. I have done well in Canada. I have millions of dollars. And I prefer that I will come home and invest that money to create opportunities for our young people. No. They don't say that, you know. In fact, if you tell them come home, them start to laugh. They say, boy, you're crazy. Me gonna leave my mansion up here in Florida, in New York, in DC, in Texas to come back on Nevis. You know, many of them take great delight in saying that the development here is substandard. They're now accustomed to the first world. And while nothing is wrong with any of that, you can't have it both ways. You can't have gone to somebody else's land to seek a better life. To go there by choice. To live there. To make your contribution there. To invest and pay your taxes there. And then when somebody from there decides, let me go to Little Nevis or St. Kitts and invest, you start to cuss them and call them white and call them this and call them that and call them the other. I'm going to say something tonight, you know, and it perhaps will be controversial. Fellas like to tape the show and chop it up however they want, but that's the matter for them. I'm grown now. I believe I can be responsible for what I say. I am feeling sometimes, when I look at some of the commentary I see in my country, that no matter the level of education that our people have, there is still an element of what I would call an inferiority complex. People feel that somebody gonna outsmart us. And you could only feel that somebody gonna outsmart you if underlying that is your own inferiority. You feel them smarter than you, because only somebody smarter than you could outsmart you. And I keep asking myself, if we are sending our people to the best schools in the world, we went to Oxford and Cambridge, we went to Harvard and Yale, renowned as the best schools, we went to UWI and UVI. We rub shoulders with the best and the brightest, and oftentimes graduated top of class. When I graduated law school at the Norman Manley Law School in 1994, Mark Brantley from Henley Park and Brownhill was #1 in the Caribbean at Norman Manley Law School. You know where I went to school? I started out at Chapel School. I went briefly at what is now Joyceton Library. I went to Ivor Walters, at the time Prospect. I went down there by CSS. I went to Sixth Farm. And then I got the opportunity to go abroad. But my entire school foundation was here in Nevis. And I went to Jamaica in 1994. And I graduated #1 in class. I got a certificate of merit. It was only the 4th time in the history of the Norman Manley Law School that a certificate of merit had been awarded. You know why I'm saying that? I am saying that because nobody could outsmart me. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean that to say that I do not go into a discussion with somebody feeling that that person is somehow superior to me. Why should I? They may know more about a particular topic than I. They may have more experience than I do. But if I start from the premise, imagine you going and play. Neve is playing cricket against Antigua. And before the game start, the Nevis players don't start to say, boy, Antigua gonna bang us, you know? Antigua gonna bang us. Antigua could bat better than us. Antigua could bowl better than us. You are starting from a premise of inferiority. And some I know may say, well, look at history. Yes, we should not forget history, but we should also learn from it. And the history that we should learn from is at a time when those of privilege were the ones who had education. And you and I, whose parents and grandparents were in the fields, had none. Well, what then is the purpose of education? What then is the purpose of all this expenditure? To equip our people, our young, our bright, and send them around the world for them to come back. And when issues arise for national development, you start to tell them, people gonna fool you. People gonna fool off you. Because again, I go back, if somebody is going to fool you or outsmart you, whichever language you want to use, inherent in that is an acceptance that they're smarter than you. And then when you graft onto that skin color, and so people start to say, oh, the narrative now goes, these people are white, and therefore, them going to outsmart all of you. Because why? We are black? We from Nevis? Is that the understanding? So them white from wherever. Them went school. We black from Nevis, we went school. But they're going to outsmart us. Emotional nonsense. We need to rise above that. We need to have in us that innate confidence. We are Vision, we are Kittian, we are Caribbean people. And nobody nowhere in the world better than us. Nobody nowhere in the world brighter than us. They may have more exposure in some cases. But if I went and I studied law at the great University of the West Indies, I went on to the Norman Manley Law School, graduated first in class. I then went to Oxford University. I got a Winter Williams Commonwealth Scholarship, a scholarship that was only offered at the time one to the entire Commonwealth. I want you all to think about that. Think about the size of India alone, the size of Australia. One! And a little boy from Nevis get it. And you want me after all of that to have a discussion with anybody and say, me afraid because they're going to outsmart me? No, I'm not suggesting that based on the topic and based on the circumstances, all of us need advice. But we must not come at discussions from a place of inferiority. And it bothers me. It bothers me. You see, there's this little Nevis here, some say it's cultural. I'm not sure what it is. We had a series of town hall meetings. I've commented on it publicly before. The whole hall is full with chairs. Everybody come in sit down at the back. Everybody who comes in sits at the back. In fact, I have seen man come in, go up to the front, take up a chair, put it down in the back to sit down. Why? Why is that so ingrained in us? Man, the chair is there for you to sit down in it. The chair is in the front, sit down in the front. What is it we are so afraid of, so concerned about? That's why chairs are put down for you. Wherever you find the chair to sit down, sit down. I have been in meetings where chairs up front and fellows stand up in the back. And I feel that it betrays a deeper issue that we have to confront as a people. Nivisions, nobody better than us. Nivisions, when we stand up, let me stand up strong, shoulders push back, proud, not arrogant, but proud of who we are. Who we are. And let us move away from those who keep telling us that we are inferior. You know, as I listen to some of the discussions about development in our country, I heard somebody say the other day that, oh, if this development come, the only jobs Nevis people gonna get is maid and gardener. Now, there's nothing at all wrong with being a maid or a gardener, because once it is honest work, it is blessed work. But I ask myself the question, why would anybody assume that those are the only jobs that Nivisions can get? So we can't be chefs, we can't be managers, we can't be accountants, we can't be doctors, lawyers, we can't own the companies that provide the maid service and the gardening service. We can't be IT specialists. What is it about us that somebody may comment publicly and say, all we can aspire to is maid and gardener? Again, there's nothing dishonorable about being a maid or gardener. But how come you don't say we can be anything we want to be? And if it is to be a maid or gardener and that's what we want, then it is honest work. And honest work is decent work. And honest work is blessed work. But let us also proclaim that our people can work in any field that they so desire. And that is where I have the difficulty. It's almost as if in thinking of some certain things too good for Nevis, you know. Certain things are too good for Nivisions. If you put on a nice pair of shoes and you put on a nice suit, there are some who will say, oh, you look lovely today. And you know there are others who will say, watch ye. Believe he better than people. Watch ye. I play big shot. I remember a conversation I had with a gentleman, a friend of mine. I believe I've shared this story before, but I'll share it again. We worked hard. He used to come by me all the time and we sit down and we chat. And he came by me one day, he said, my friend, my business is doing well. He said, I can't complain, I'm doing very well. He said, man, I see a Jeep I want to buy, you know. An expensive Jeep, I want to buy it for my missus. He said, man, even on a Sunday when we take a drive around, I want it to be comfortable. And I said to him, you have the money to buy? He said, yes, man, yes, business is doing well, I got the money. I said, well, why don't you buy it? Make yourself and your wife comfortable. You know what he tell me? Boy, Nevis people are going to say, me got money. And they might stop give me work if I buy that vehicle. He never bought the vehicle. And I am saying that that betrays something that we need to get over. There's a difference in my mind between humility and inferiority. All of us can be humble, but never allow us to feel that somebody is superior to us, or to be overawed by some situation that we are not up to the task, that something is bigger than us, something is too good for us. I remember when I was a child, you know, my mother of blessed memory, who taught me so much about life. taught me about what is right and what is wrong. And I could not have been no more than a boy of maybe 12, 11 or 12. And I remember that I had some friends who, at that time in our history, one would say they were better off. But I like to tell people now, with the benefit of hindsight, everybody in Nevis was poor. But I suppose some were less poor than others. And so these people were less poor, or put differently, had a bit more than we had as poor people. And I remember two of those people, so situated, were my friends. In fact, they were my best friends. And I remember my mother tell me one day, be careful, be careful, don't hang your hat where you can't reach it. And I remember how those words burned me. Those words burnt a hole in my psyche. And as a youngster, little boy, I said to my mother, never in your life tell me ever again that I mustn't put hat where I can't reach it. Because wherever I put my hat, I will reach it. Don't limit me. Don't tell me things as a youngster which will impose on me a feeling that somebody is better than me. I am not better than anybody, to be sure, but nobody is better than me either. And to her credit, she told me she understood, and she never again in life suggested to me that I can't put my hat wherever I want to put my hat. You don't tell me I shouldn't put my hat where I can't reach it. But too many of us seem to be of that view. We're talking about development in Nevis. There's some who are saying this can't happen in Nevis. I heard no less a man than the former Prime Minister in Sinkit scoffing at the idea about Nevis, but they could get development like Dubai. A choopiness them attack. Because you see, in his small-mindedness, the people of Nevis are to be kept in some particular position, and for them to aspire to be greater than they are. That is something to be laughed at. And I smile, because so long as God gives me breath, I'm going to remind the people of Nevis of their inherent greatness. Now let nobody tell us that we can't. Now let nobody tell us what our limits are. Let us continue to strive for excellence and to do the best that we can. And the truth be told, that wherever the people of Nevis have gone, they've excelled. I told my story about being #1 in class in Jamaica. Well, what do you think? So, you think I was the only person who has ever excelled? Look around the world. Look at where the Nevisians are positioned. I'm not even getting into Kititians yet, because they are equally great. I'm not even getting into the wider Caribbean, because they're equally great. I'm dealing with my little Nevis right now. Look around the world. I am sure somebody could call in tonight from the BVI and tell me about Nevisians who are down there in prominent positions. They could call me from USVI. They could call me from Florida and from New York and from DC and from Miami. They could call me from Toronto and Kitchener and wherever else. I don't know the province them in Toronto so good. Saskatchewan. And tell me about Nevisians who have excelled. They could call me from the UK. Look at the man, my dear friend, Arthur France. Went up to Leeds and started Leeds Carnival. I'm told it's the second largest carnival in Europe. Only Notting Hill, I think, in London is bigger. And Nevis man went there and started that. Is that not greatness? And if you have such examples of greatness, look at Dr. Everson Hull from Bath Village, who became the first ever PhD economics graduate from the capstone Howard University. So what do you think? We're not imbued with greatness? So why are we so afraid? And why are there some who say they wish to lead but keep reminding us to be fearful? No, we must encourage our young people not to be fearful, but to be courageous. not to be arrogant, but not allow their humility to constrain their ambitions. My simple message to our people: we can be anything that we want to be. We can aspire to anything that we so choose. And we have sufficient examples around the world that tell us that we're imbued with a tremendous sense of greatness. Even there in St. Kitts, you know, a lot of divisions go to St. Kitts, and they've done well. But sometimes you gotta wonder where they come from, because them not talk too hard to say them from Nevis. And sometimes I get a little cross with them. I say, boy, open your mouth, and Nevis you're from. Big up your chest, and Nevis you're from. It's something proud to say. When I went to law school in Jamaica, you know, they used to have a roster. And every other country got the country name: Bahamas, Barbados, etc. He had about 10 of us from St. Kitts and Nevis. I was the only division. And me see all of them got down to all 10 St. Kitts. I went to the principal's office. I said, Mr. Roper, let me tell you something. The name of my country is St. Kitts and Nevis. If, however, the law school chooses only to put an island's name, then I am from the island of Nevis. Do not put St. Kitts next to my name. It's either St. Kitts and Nevis, because that's the name of my country, or if you want to spell out the island, then put Nevis. But me not come from St. Kitts. And they thought it was the biggest joke at law school. The next time the roster come out, the biggest Nevis me ever see in my life next to me. Everybody has one in common letters, mine capitalized. Capital N, capital E, capital V, capital I, capital S. And I say, that's all right. That's okay. We must understand who we are as a people. And don't let people tell us about, oh, this gonna come and fool you, and that gonna outsmart you, and this kind of thing. It is seeking to inculcate in us a level of inferiority. People are better. Them know more. They're smarter. No. Be in vision and be proud. Let's open the lines. 5 minutes to the hour. Good evening, anyone out there who wants to call. This is your chance. 869-469-1616. 869-469-1700. Let's go straight to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello.
Good evening, Michelle.
Good evening, my dear. Thank you for calling. What you have for me tonight?
Just 3 verse 1 and 2.
Yes.
Put them in mind to be subject to principalities and power, to obey magistrates, to be ready to every good works, to speak evil of no man, to be no brawlers, but gentle, showing all meeknesses unto all men. Have a good evening.
Thank you very, very much for your call and for your scripture, and we're going to continue to take calls. I said I would give a bit more time tonight. I did go on a bit long, but we are into the call-in segment now. 869-469-1616 and 1700. Let's go straight back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Caller, please call back in. Be patient with us. We're going to keep trying. Let's try again. Good evening, you're on the air.
Premier Brantley, good night.
Yes, good evening to you.
How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, good night, finally. Premier Brantley, last week...
Caller, I'm not hearing you clearly. I don't know what's happening, but could you speak up? Maybe move your mouth closer to the phone? I don't know what.
You hear me better?
A little better.
Okay. Let me tell you, last week I come home with a headache for a funeral.
Oh my, I'm sorry to hear that.
Anyway, and let me try 4 times, but I don't get it. So, let me say good night to the Virgin Islands. Listener, we're not going to hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, here you know. Plenty things you see tonight. We're going to corner. Although you know that a Janice may back, right? When you say things that sound right and so forth and so, may go back to you. So with the one with the prayer, God answer prayer, me go back in with that. You hear me good?
I'm hearing you.
Yeah, the meeting the Republican whether be candidate, whether be support or whatever the case may be, may go back you. Well, these people are going to hate me tonight too. Because me and chum support her.
But why should they hate you for that?
Well,
Them have a right to support who they want. Why you shouldn't have a right to support who you want?
Yes. Yeah, you know, I mean, you got some people, I'm not the only one up here too. You got some people, who just watch CNN and they don't want to hear nothing about that. Then you got, you know, you get to me say, but you see, the creator put one brain in my head that I can think for myself. So I don't really follow a multitude. Really and truly. Anyway, let's get to some serious business now. Some details is tonight, you put on like a 6 months.
I do what, caller?
It's some of the things that is tonight, you put one little twist on them. Like me not think that me get the stuff like white people.
No?
No.
So when you read white people, what you read? You read black people when you see white people? Because people now pretending or they must say it plain.
So wait, you know why you get on your phone?
You're not talking about no phone, I'm talking about what is being said out there in social media, what is being said all over. I mean, there are people who are coming out plain and telling you exactly what they feel and what they think.
Well, me not really on social media.
All right.
Me not on social media. So me based on what me hear on the radio station that. Anyway, remember Brantley last week I was Virgin Island friends so that you handle yourself well the town hall meeting. Me not think well if you join here, they go say you hand yourself well and answer 20 the question. You hear me?
I'm hearing you.
Yes, because they ask one question and you don't answer the question yet. He asks you if the people, if the developers them got land inside the Frankies, the outside of the zone. And up to now, the question and answer.
You asked me, you say?
You made it table?
I'm just curious, but you said a question was asked of me and I didn't answer?
Yeah. No, because, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you answer, but you run out so much up to no question and answer.
Oh, okay, all right.
Right, so I'm going to ask you now, if the Destiny people propose this zone, then that land, them purchase land inside of leave it different to the zone?
Well, the proposed investors have said a number of things, caller. They have said that for those people who have lands in the area that they want to establish this zone, but who do not wish to sell, that they are trying to acquire lands elsewhere to swap. And they say they're doing at a swap of 1.5. That's what I gathered from them. So if you have 10 acres of land over on the southern side of Nevis, and you do not wish to sell your land, they say they'll purchase 15 acres someplace else that they can swap, exchange then. Let me not use swap. Exchange for that. That's my understanding.
Okay. So, in other words, they not got the land yet.
I wouldn't know what lands they have already. I'm merely telling you that that is my understanding of what they said they are proposing to do.
Well, all of it, that understanding there, but the whole point about it, you swap something, you don't have to done got them.
No, caller, what are you saying? So if I tell you I want to buy your car and you tell me I'll sell your car and I say, well, all right, I see a pickup truck down by TDC. If I buy that pickup truck and give it to you, will you give me the car? Oh yes, sir. Me can't have that conversation with you until me buy the pickup truck.
You can't get it.
But you know, calling you sometime, I wonder what you really be telling people, you know. No wonder you support Janice, because you know make no sense sometimes.
Premier Brantley, no. Listen. Remember, you say upfront, early upfront, that only for the South Coast, the people and them supposed to purchase land, you know.
I said that up front?
Yeah,
Yeah?
land.
Oh.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
The most part, even in the parliament, you made myself once if somebody in got 2 acres of land, they can get hands on. But then as but now like on the radio station different time of people pose questions. You must say that even somebody in got 2 acres and they want to do on zone, they can do on zone.
But that's what the law is clear, caller. If anybody who have land and want to apply to do a zone, once they could satisfy the law, they can apply. What is so questionable about that?
No, you're not getting that message just now. You're not getting that message just now. Anyway, so they not got no land yet. So in other words, if somebody outside, that means them going to have to harass somebody now inland to go get the land.
Caller, you asked me if the people have purchased land outside. What was my answer to you?
You answer said you hear the developers.
Caller, you asked me if the people have purchased land outside. I said I did not know. I can only say to you what the developers have indicated about exchanging lands with people. That was my conversation with you less than 3 minutes ago. You're now going to say, me say, the people have no land outside. Me never tell you that.
Okay. No, the reason why I push point out to you that answer Jerry.
I call it. Well, as I said, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but my simple point is.
And even last night, for the whole night, people posed question with MP Brand, and he no answer too.
Well, maybe you're not getting the answer that you want, but that doesn't mean the question has been answered, you know.
Okay. Well, that we will agree with you with. That we will agree with you with. Let's give somebody else one chance. All
right. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Let's stick with the telephones and continue to take the calls with 6 minutes past 9. Good evening. You're on the mark. Hello.
Good evening, Premier Brantley.
Yes. Good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead.
How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Good to hear you.
You touch on a lot of different issues tonight, and I have to say I agree with 99% of what you have said so far. Premier Brantley, you know who I am.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I hardly remember getting any schooling in this Nevis. I couldn't get schooling. I came from a poor family. But it just seemed to me like some people here, even though they get all sorts of schooling, as you say, when they are discussing a topic, they don't open their mind to have a conversation, to make their point and to listen to the other person's point of view and try to learn from each other. It's as though they come with their own preconceived ideas already. And as long as you're not saying what they want to hear, something is wrong. Pierre Brantley, you know, I born in this country here poor. And I work hard and try to make something of myself. And what I have done, I didn't get much schooling. So what I do, I listen to those who went to school and read those who went to school and try to pick up a couple things. You know, I have to say to people in Nevis over and over, Why are you cussing Donald Trump? Are you an American? Do you vote in America? Do you realize that the people who matter in the United States voted for Donald Trump? So why are you here cussing and fussing up yourself? But that's one point. Another thing I find is that some people don't understand that there's a difference between a government minister, parliamentarian, and those kind of people, right? Engaging in diplomacy, and some people sitting down at the barber shop, in the rum shop, around the domino table, and having a discussion. They don't seem to understand that is a different level of conversation, that is, and you have to use diplomacy. Not just chat out any old thing, and not just because you don't like somebody, or that has nothing to do when government ministers are meeting face to face and discussing issues. And, you know, before you start to talk tonight, I was sitting down here in my house and contemplating and thinking these things and say, you know, I wonder if you must go on the radio and say them. And I say, you know, I need to keep off the radio and leave people alone, you know, because I tell you another thing. Again, I like to say, nobody is wiser than James Hendrickson. And I mean it to the death. And I never say nobody is smarter than me, nor brighter than me. But you know how many people would have cussed me and say, oh, you say you are the brightest in the world and you are the smartest in the world. I never said that once yet. I said nobody is wiser than me. And I mean it to the death, Premier Brantley. Look, people do not understand. If I say that, I am not necessarily saying that I know everything. And what I am doing, I am not comparing myself with anybody else. I'm talking about the way how I look at myself. You understand? And that is how I see myself. I am not comparing myself with you or you. But when I see myself as nobody is wiser than me. And I have a right to feel that way. I am not saying that I know everything or somebody else don't know something that I don't know. That's what I'm saying. And people don't seem to be able to break down issues. Let me give you an example. You listen?
Yes, man, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Let me tell you something. One evening I called the radio here. And some gentleman was on the radio. And they were talking about the proposed project and blah, 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 blah. And then it went on to the issue of whether cash or land, which to me, I would prefer to have. And I called in because some people were suggesting one thing, and they have a right to that. But I called in and I made my point and I said, land is a very good asset, cash is a very good asset, but for me, I would prefer to have the cash. If you have an acre of land for $240,000, and I have that $240,000 cash in my hand, I can do so many more things right away with the cash that I cannot do with the land. I was not saying that land is not a good asset. You know what? Some people start to argue with me, and when I listen to what they are saying, they're telling me that I agree with the project. I said, what that have to do with me agreeing with the project and not agreeing with the project? I want to know how people don't understand that you have to break down separate issues. That has nothing to do whether I agree with that project or not. I was simply making a point that I would prefer to have the cash, because I could do so much things with the cash that I cannot do with the land at that point in time?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand, because you say that we're sending our children to school now and all kind of things. I don't know, because I'm telling you honestly, sometimes I go on the street and I talk to some people who have 6 and 8 and 10 subjects and university education, and I want to know if that is really so. I want to know if that is really so. Premier Brantley, please educate the people and let them know that a conversation in the barber shop and in the rum shop, right, and at the domino table is different when diplomats sit down to negotiate. You can't go there with nothing but you know, like this. You're going there to get the best possible bargain you can get. But let me say something else, because a lot of people saying a lot of things. And tonight I was thinking, and I said, you know, many people who are complaining about certain things, and America, and da. Premier Brantley, do you know, 3 and 4 times a year, these people are taking trips to the United States, and acting as though the United States is heaven. And you know what that is doing? It is causing a problem for our government, because what happened, what they're doing, we are tying our way of life so much into the United States, or what I call Europe, because in my mind, the United States is not geographical Europe, but everything else about it is Europe. And so what these people are doing, they're tying everything, our whole way of life, into Europe. What that does now is that, and I'm not just saying economy, you know, I'm going further than economy, I'm saying the whole way of life here. What that do is put a lot of pressure on any government that is in place when they have to go and bargain with the Europeans, because then the Europeans already know that our economy and our whole way of life is so tied into to them that they almost like they have all the chips. So our government has to be very, very careful when they're negotiating with them. Look at this. The United States government make a request to Grenada, and until now, the Grenada government has not reply yet, and it's all more because the government know they have to be so careful as to how they answer. Some people here just opening their mouth and saying anything, and I want to know what they're saying sometimes. And you know, sometimes I sit down in my house here and I want to cry when I hear people saying certain things. They don't understand that when government ministers are talking, they have to engage in diplomacy, not foolish petty talk. And you have to look to see what the best deal you can get out of any negotiation. And sometimes you have to give up something here to get something there and the other side as well. Premier Brantley, I don't know what to say.
The other thing, brother, just to interrupt you, the other thing that concerns me is that you have a meeting, yeah, at that level. So I had a meeting, an engagement with the chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee. And because I had a meeting with the man, took a picture with the man and say, we had an important discussion. People start to say, oh, he's a Republican, he's Trump, he's this, he's that, he's the other. What does that have to do with me? I'm trying to understand.
But Premier Brantley, I am saying those are the same people who almost every time I hear them say they're taking a vacation, is the United States they're going to. So what are they saying? So how come they could take up and go, but you trying to make contact with people who can help us, and they say you mustn't do it. And then, you know, if I say this tonight, you know, tomorrow morning, some people make me down tongue and start to cuss me and say, oh, you're Mark Brantley, dog. You're this and that. Oh, you're all time on the radio backing up Mark Brantley. What that has to do with backing up? anybody, whether whoever is in government in Nevis has to sit, especially with people in the United States government, and negotiate with them properly. There's so many things that our economy and our whole lifestyle tied into the United States.
Absolutely.
When these people are thinking of what they're saying, what are they saying? Just talking off the top of their head. That's all they're doing.
And not only that, but another separate matter is what message are we sending?
To those people.
Right?
Because they're hearing too.
Of course, somebody said to me the other day.
They're hearing.
That the environment that some are trying to create is so hostile to foreign investors, right?
They're not going to come.
Well, that's the point.
They're not going to come.
It's so hostile, and when people start to tell you about you this and you're racist and you're bringing back slavery and this, and people say, man, let me go elsewhere with my money, right?
Yeah.
We need to sometimes take stock, and that is why I started out tonight by saying too many of us are responding to everything with emotion. With emotion.
Premier Brantley, have you noticed that you, the same people who are blah, 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 plan the street and blah, 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 you call a town hall meeting, right, as you say. They sit to the back, then owner asks questions there because they're not capable. Let me say it plain here tonight. But soon as the meeting is finished and they step out the door, you start to hear more. Like when you roll in some empty barrel and put some marbles in there. And sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy because I said these people get schooling. Me didn't get no schooling. What is going on? What me could say, because me no politician. They sound like when you put some marble in a oil pan and roll in it. They can't have no proper discourse. They cannot ask a proper question. But wait till they come, wait till you see the meeting finish and they get outside and you hear them. They know everything. They know everything. So some of them will say to me, oh, you give it, I cannot keep off the radio. Rather than on the radio. I say, well, if you cannot speak on the radio, what am I to do with that? I have a right to call the radio if anybody have a public discourse. So why you don't do it? But they can't do it. And I'm talking about people who call themselves teacher and doctor. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you our next thing here tonight. Yeah? Premier Brantley, me, Giwaya, feel I could sit down with any human being that God ever make and have a proper discussion with them or a proper debate with them.
Yeah, but you realize, going to my point, you realize if you, Giro, felt that you were inferior to them, you could never do that?
Mark, you don't know Giro yet.
But no, I'm just trying to tell you, if you went there with that mindset, that boy, me and Giro, me come from a Cox and me no went to school, so them they better than me. You understand? And that is what I'm trying to say. A lot of people, when they make this kind of commentary, right? When you're going to tell somebody, oh, the only job you're going to get is this job or that job. That's the only job you could get. Why are you telling people that? Unless that is betraying your own thinking. And that is a difficulty I have.
That's what you're saying to me. You know? You're telling me who you are. When you do that, you're telling me who you are. That's the way you're thinking. But not me, you know. Not me. You're telling me the way you're thinking.
All right, my brother.
Anyway, good night.
Yes, we'll leave that there. Thank you very much for the call. That was Mr. James Hendrickson, my friend from Bath. He and I have some tussle sometimes, but I always love to listen to him because he always makes sense. And I like what he's saying because, you know, we have to have confidence in ourselves. As I said, I'm not suggesting that we be arrogant. But confidence and arrogance are two different things. We have to have confidence in ourselves. And as Nivisions, we have to be confident. There are a lot of people out there who keep telling us, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Oh, you need to be afraid of this, you need to be afraid of that. Let us be confident in ourselves. I'm going to get back to that. Let me go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
I'm going to support you with again, Premier Brantley. see how I support you tonight? You get me?
But will you supporting me tonight? That's good. Continue.
No, put no twist, man. Me say me support you with a pint there. Got confidence to yourself. Anyway, last week, you get on call last week. Me know who, but you know me identify. But I enough. You remember when you talk about, well, me go back to my Rasta zone, and then you say, what Rasta you talk about? Me know who you be. Me go pass by you. You remember that? You remember the call, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Remember, Brantley, let me go back to the conversation. Well, not really the conversation. Round the party. And this is what you people I must say to you, but you like you not catch them. No. He ban Nanivis, right? Okay, the investors them that you say you go bring and settle, then come from elsewhere. But here you know, remember now when they come, them are gonna one zone that New Vision have to go get permission to go into the zone. Me right or me wrong with that?
I don't know anything about any permission to go into the zone. I anticipate that just like any other place. May I ask you something? You have a house?
Yeah, me got a house.
Your house got a fence?
No.
You don't got no fence?
No.
Okay. But if you put up a fence around your house and you have a gate,
Yeah.
are your house it be, ain't it?
Yeah.
So you expect that me gonna just walk in your yard and do what me want in your yard? Or me got to come there and say, Mr. Monstrat, and you tell me, boy, come. Huh?
Me agree with all that.
Okay.
Me agree with all that.
If you and I tonight decide we're going down by Four Seasons and have a drink down there by the bar. We not gonna forget you a man there and the man let us in?
One security check.
So my thing is I don't understand why people are carrying on as if anywhere in the world you could just walk in and out of people's property.
Well, all right, Mr. Brantley, and now you're going to get the point, because it's me upon the same point.
So what's the point now? Tell me.
The point that me make, you tell, when the guy said that something, like business flow, and he said, wait, remember, people for no like, the people that you're going to bring now will start to boost business. Right?
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
Yes, but this is the point. When they come out of the zone, then just flow out of the zone and flow in. But when you go there, you want permission.
But it's not about permission, caller. I just mentioned Four Seasons. A permission, you don't get to go down there.
No, but this
no, but you're not making a point that makes any sense without due respect, because the reality is that if a tourist come in here tomorrow and them staying at Four Seasons, in fact we want them to come out, we want them to go to the hotels and go in town and shop and do all of that. That's how you build an economy. But if you or I want to go into the people's property, then we have to go into the people's property in accordance with the protocols that they have there. It's not about permission. It's not about a thing. It's about security. That's what it comes down to. That's why I asked you if you think you must go fence your house and put up a gate, and you'll understand the point me make.
So Premier Brantley, you know, tell me about fence and get in and walls and get in. Get in, but you know get the point just now. Hear the point. The point is the division. I say yummy ban. Okay. Them need permission now for go in the zone.
But you're going back to your permission point, and me ask you where you get that from. What do you mean permission?
Premier Brantley up front, not the earthly, maybe them might have done something like a little I forgot the zone.
A little what?
Probably, you say you don't know how them are going to set them up, but maybe you might have to get a little pass or maybe something like a little...
Me never know who you listen to and where you get your information from. You know. You say, I said they must get a pass to go in zone?
You don't know how. Premier Brantley, you say you don't know how them are going to set them up. You don't know how they're going to set. But you suggest like maybe you might have to go a little pass or maybe something like a visa, like for God is on.
Caller, me never suggest no such thing to you. You understand? Or to anybody else.
Remember, Brantley, you said that.
Me say people must get pass or visa to go in zone.
You say you bypass. You say, again, you say, you don't know how. Them are going to do them.
So me say me don't know how them are going to do them. How that reach to pass or visa?
No, this, you continue. You continue.
Caller, let me tell you something.
You say so.
Caller, let me tell you something, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have never suggested publicly or privately to anybody, but anybody got to get no pass or visa to go in a zone. Because from earlier clock, the people came, we said to them, one of the points that is non-negotiable is that people must always have access. But we understand that having access does not mean you just prance in and out of people's property. You have to have protocols in place, and that's why I use the example of Four Seasons. So the same way you tell me how people say them ban ya. When people ban ya, but them going 4 seasons and they go through a protocol to get in and out.
Remember, Brantley, change up your motive.
Well, I'm not changing up anymore because you are trying to tell me, you're going to tell me that I say Nevis people going to need visa? Visa to go where?
Again, Brantley, you may make one suggestion.
I never make no such suggestion, and I'm telling you plain. Because, as I said, as the Premier of Nevis, that has been the first point that my cabinet raised. So nobody come with that. You mix up your show, them I don't tell you, stop listening to so much show.
Premier Brandon, mix up the show.
All right, anyway, let's move on. Let's move on, caller, because that dog then I hunt. So move on.
Yeah, but the people say, well, yeah, man, but the people can flow in. But no, when them know, they're going to have to get permission.
All right, caller, you made the point 100 times. The point now get no better because it's a bad point, right?
Okay, a bad point for you.
No, it's a bad point. Period. If you're bringing people into a country, you don't want the people to flow out. My partner who calling, you don't want the people to come by his bar and patronize.
Okay, the people flow out, but then maybe people can't flow in.
But you flow in, yes, but you flow in pursuant to the rules. Just as you flow into 4 seasons now, pursuant to 4 seasons, say, boy, you have to go through this procedure to come in. What is the problem with that?
Okay, so in other words now, they're not going to rules to flow in. Just flow in at you, but you got rules.
But caller, that is the height of let me tell you something. I believe whoever asks you to call into that, you're going to tell them, right? You need better talking points than this. Because me like you know, and people like you. But you get into a point now where you not chat things that make no sense, caller. Right? Because you don't understand how economies work and how economies are set up. There is benefit to Nevis by people coming in and people flowing out into the community. When them bus loads of tourists from 4 Seasons reach up to Bananas and reach up to Montpelier and reach up by Passions, that represents economic activity. It is something that you want to encourage.
Brantley, me work hard, tell me work a sandpiper hotel, me work no about it.
So if you know about it, then so what you telling me then? So let me ask you then. Let me put the point separately. So we should have rules then to set to the guests at 4 Seasons. I'm very sorry, but you can't come and go nowhere outside 4 Seasons property unless so and so and so. That's what you're telling me?
You continue to use 4 Seasons.
Well, I'm using 4 Seasons as the best example we have in Nevis. It's the best example we have in Nevis.
Premier Brantley, the zone that for the parliament and pass, and the people are going to come and invest. And the zone that we talk about.
But caller, you were talking about access. So where there's access to zone, access to 4 Seasons, access to Park Hyatt, access to Christoph Harbour, we're talking about access by our people.
Okay, so let me just sum up now. The people that are going to settle, and let me use 4 Seasons. They're more important to the economy. They must come and they must bring the money and they go come and they're more valuable then to the economy than the barn and bread division.
Who said that? That's what you saying?
No, because I talk about privileges. I talk about privileges, and you know.
What's the privilege? So is a privilege now for people to come and spend the money in Nevis?
No. You see, you're run again.
No, me tell you the point is getting worse. I tell you already, you're making a bad point. Rather than hang up and think about it and call back. Caller, I tell you already, you're making a bad point.
Yeah,
you know, listen.
You know how to get the point. You know how to get the
But there's no point to get. Because if you tell me how if people coming and go spend money if they're more valuable than divisions, what really you telling? Listen, not just me. Listen, caller. Remember, it's not just me you talk to. You know, people listen to you know.
Of course, me know that.
And plenty monstration I listen to you now. Do monstration no justice right now, you know.
Me agree with all of them, but you run for the point. You know.
All right, caller. Well, go off the phone and think about the point and call back in later with a better point. Because this one you know make no sense. You're 2 prime you're calling tonight, and you not do so well this week at all. I don't understand. All right. Me like when you're calling, I like to talk to you, but you have to understand how an economy is set up and how it's intended to work. But you're going to ask me people coming up more privilege. What that's supposed to mean? You want people to come in and spend their money? What other purpose you want? But for people to come in and spend, caller, that's why we have tourism. Anyway, let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello,
good evening.
Yes, good evening to you.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Good evening.
Second generation caller from last week where I have about the SSZ, so I came back with some more questions for you, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yes. So, in the vein of conversation, I think I've gotten some understanding about the SSZ, and I was always wondering what was all the hullabaloo between everybody about misinformation and disinformation. But from what you said last week, I think I got a more clear understanding. I just wanted to get just to confirm with you. So basically, you're saying at the times of the talks now that there's nothing concrete, as in set in stone, for you to report to the public, and the only time when we would know anything about the development agreement specifically would be at the time that it is released to Parliament.
No, I'm not saying that. I think that there are aspects of the development agreement which we have discussed quite publicly already. What I am saying is that some matters are still under discussion and therefore not yet finalized. And I then went on to say that anything that is finalized will be published. And that's an historic force for the country because it has to be published, it has to go to the Parliament, and so you and I and everybody else will see it, be able to dissect it, be able to comment on it, as the case may be. Right? But it's not to suggest that we have not, because we have discussed quite a lot in the public domain already about this and what is proposed. But where the aspects of it that have not yet been agreed, we've also said that those aspects are still being negotiated.
Right, and forgive me if you misunderstand my comment. I think the majority of the public, from what I've heard, and I'm not going to speak for everybody else, I'm going to speak for myself, but from what I've personally heard, everybody's been asking for specifics, and while you guys have offered quite a bit of information, I think there's some specific things like access or whatever the case may be that you broadly talk about for the most part, but I think from what you're saying and from what you just explained that the only time where we're going to get those specific answers would be when that goes to Parliament. Well,
again, Carl, it depends on what specific answers you're seeking. For example,
like for me, right?
For example, hold on a second. For example, we have said to the people that there must be access. People must be free to come and go. Okay? That's the principle that's settled. Now, is that access going to look like Four Seasons access? Or is it going to be use of technology? That's the kind of specific now that you're going to get into. But the principle that there has to be access and egress is agreed. So it just now to get into the debate now as to when you say details, it's whether you're going to have a arm like Four Seasons has, and a man come out with a pad and he lift up the arm and he write down your number and he tell you go ahead, or is that something where you just captured? I entered Sinkits today, and all I do was walk through an archway, and they tell me go, because it captures all of my details as I'm walking through the archway. So that now is a degree of detail, but the principle that is to be agreed is that people must be able to access and egress.
All right, and I think we're saying the same thing, but maybe just in different ways.
Mhm.
So, because one of my specific concerns, I guess, which is something that I am resigning to wait for the bill, or the not a bill, but the agreement to come out, is for smaller things that may have some large implications, like, for instance, the topic of maybe compulsory acquisition, if that could be discussed, I guess, as since the land selling is private, once the development agreement goes through, if Destiny can't get, they need this one piece of land very specifically, it's basically said that the government can't intervene. And I think, kind of, sort of, you've talked about that in a roundabout way by saying that the land selling is private. But for those type of agreements, I would wonder if those things can't be put into ink.
But what would you like to see put into ink? Let me understand you correctly.
Basically excluding or banning the government from gaining or compulsory acquiring.
Well, how are you going to
land.
ban a government from compulsory acquisition, caller? That's an inherent
It's a
right.
private land sale.
No, but that's an inherent right of government. So it may be that you do not like the idea that government is going to compulsory acquire land to hand over to somebody for a zone. But what if there's some other compelling national security or other reason why the government needs that land?
I think you're talking from the abstract. I'm talking specifically for this specific development.
Well, we have said we have said quite clearly that the government will not be engaged in any compulsory acquisition of any land. That is not a matter for debate or discussion. That has been said.
Well, I guess I haven't heard you say that.
Of course, we have said that from jump, caller.
And again, I'm just having a conversation for understanding.
No, and I'm telling you because you've said that certain things aren't clear. So I'm saying that we have said that because that was one of the early stories that was put out. The early bits of misinformation.
I would think at a certain point you would have to agree because it's true. The agreement's not out. So there are certain things, certain specifics that people are talking for, or talking to, that even yourself say that how would you know?
Yes,
like
but
$23 billion or whatever the case may be. We wouldn't know the extent of any kickbacks if somebody reneges on the agreement until the agreement comes out.
Yeah, but while that is the case, caller, it does not give anybody a license to publish misinformation. So
I don't think so either.
If somebody doesn't know, then my answer to that is we ask the question. And we say, well, what if? But in circumstances where people do not know and they just make it up. One of the first things people started to say, in fact, I had a little to and fro with a good friend of mine. And he said he was ashamed of me because I had gone to pass a law that will allow the government to take away people's land and give it to white people. That is the law that we passed in St. Kitts. I sent him the law. I said, please read it for yourself because that was one of the early bits of misinformation that had been disseminated. Right? We responded to that and we said, listen, these transactions are between buyer and seller. The government is not involved. And the government will not involve itself in those transactions. So who wants to sell, sell. Who does not want to sell, doesn't sell. It's a matter for them.
Brantley, I definitely agree with the sentiment that if there's no information, that shouldn't be the space for mis or disinformation.
Yes.
But one thing that I've learned in my life is that sometimes it is human nature when there's not information readily available, that speculation is the first tool that people tend to gravitate towards, even the most intelligent of people. And I think that's really the crux of this whole back and forth between don't do or we should do, is that the information is not yet available, but I would encourage all those listening and those who care that the information will be readily available when it does go public. And that is when we can have these larger than life conversations. But one more question for you. You did say that they will go through a first and second and third reading like any other bill or any other law that goes through Parliament and EVIS or the NIA. So let's say, for example, that during the first reading or the second, whatever part, that somebody stands up and says, hey, I think that we should take this out, or we should add this to this, or we should amend this part of the agreement. Would then we have to pause the talks and go back to the negotiation table, or those things you don't think would be happening at that juncture?
Well, caller, once there's a parliamentary process, if you follow the parliamentary process here, you know that bills are changed throughout that process. If there are points to be made, points that have not been considered, changes to be made, then those are made during the parliamentary process. So,
right, and I agree.
Yes.
I'm not. I just didn't want you to, because what my point is that this isn't a bill, so the parties involved wouldn't be present. So Destiny wouldn't be in Parliament sitting down to say, okay, yeah, because you and the NIA or whoever, you your team, whoever is looking at this development agreement, would have already said to Destiny, okay, we like this, we're going to now take this to Parliament. Or we're going to take this for the lawmakers to look at it.
Yes.
But let's say the lawmakers say, hey, we don't like this, or we like this, but we want to renegotiate this figure, or whatever the case may be. Wouldn't you then have to consult Destiny because they are also the part of the agreement? Because if they would have changed.
If you're going to if through the parliamentary process you're going to make fundamental changes to the agreement, then clearly you have to go back because an agreement is between parties to that agreement. But given the process that we are talking about here, I don't know how that is going to happen. Because in my opinion, if it is that there are concerns about the agreement, then there will be opportunity for those concerns to be ventilated. The opposition has issues, whoever has issues, the public has issues, and then one would be able to gauge at the time you go into Parliament to have a debate and to pass legislation. I have never seen any legislation go to our Parliament where there's a wholesale change. It is normally legislation that goes and you say, well, all right, let us adjust here and let us adjust there. So if it is that there will be some fundamental change to the underlying agreement, then naturally one would have to go back to the drawing board on that. The point that I was trying to make and that I've been trying to make all along is that just the very process of allowing public discussions on this, allowing an opportunity to do even what you're suggesting may happen, is in and of itself a quantum leap forward for the country because it has never happened before.
And I agree. I don't think that's a common thing in Nevis nor in the United States from what I see, that these type of things go public. And I commend you or whoever put that a part of the bill to put that for such a large development. But I understand what you're saying, but I just want a little bit more clarification. I'll let you go because I'm sure there's other callers that want to chime in with their opinions tonight. But I guess my thinking is coming from you saying that you don't think it would happen and that the public has been allowed to chime in and that these other people would have to chime in. But I'm kind of confused now. And again, don't take this to be defamatory or take this to be an attack. But if everything largely right now, at least for the public, is behind closed doors, because that's where it needs to be right now. That's the process that we're in right now. When it gets to Parliament, that's when we're going to all figure out what's going on in black and white, capital letters, lowercase letters. So how then would the public chime in for it to change, or any other party other than the zone developer and the government at that point? Do you understand that question?
But because I understand where you're getting at, but I think that you are still perhaps not accepting the point that I tried to raise earlier. I said we have ventilated quite a bit of this already. What we have not been able to give a conclusive answer on are matters that are still open. So it is not correct to say that, oh, this is largely secret and the public does not know. The public may not have seen.
I don't want you. I'm only cutting you off because I don't want you to mischaracterize or to misunderstand what I'm saying.
So so explain it a bit better for me then, because you said the public does not know, and I'm saying I don't agree with you.
Because I think what you're talking about abstract. You're talking about, do we want to do the development? Yes or no. But I'm talking about decisions as though, is the sign going to be yellow or is the sign going to be green? For example, the public wouldn't know that until you guys come out and say the sign is green. And then the public's like, oh, well, I don't like the sign. But then you're saying that government, it chooses to govern the way that they choose to govern because you put that trust in us, which is absolutely fine of a perspective to have, because at the end of the day, that is why there is democracy. But what I'm saying is that maybe not even for just the general public, but let's say just some figures don't look right, or some financiers may want to pitch in or whatever. If it's public at that point, and you say you don't think there's a lot of changes, I'm basically afraid that once it gets to Parliament and then everybody who's there agrees that it's just going to push through, and then there might potentially, and again, I know you don't like to deal with what if, but I do think that even in a what if scenario, it is something that for lawmakers think about, that what if the general public genuinely do not agree with certain terms?
Well, and caller, that happens in every democracy. If they genuinely do not agree with certain terms, then they will have an opportunity to register their disagreement. That is the way democracies work. So I don't see that this is anything new, anything novel, in the sense of when developments, when proposals, when whatever happens. In America, let's use the great United States. California decides we're going to legalize marijuana. I'm sure not everybody in California said, we think that's a good idea. But that's what they decide to do. If their legislature goes through the decision to legalize marijuana in California, well, the next election cycle, the people will decide whether they like that idea or they didn't. They register their concern in a particular way in a democracy. In other areas in the world, people resort to violence to register their concern. That is not our system. Our system is that consult, but decisions are taken. If those decisions turn out this way or that way, then there is a price to pay or reward to be had insofar as elections are concerned. The alternative, you see, and that is why I've had some concerns, because I've heard people talking about referendum and, you know, let's get the alternative is that you start to govern by public opinion. And that is always a very difficult thing to do, because how are you ever going to take a decision? Because I assure you, caller, if Jesus Christ himself were to come to Nevis right now, whatever he may say, there'll be some who are going to say we don't agree and we're opposed to it. So we understand the nature of people, and we also understand that people elect governments to lead. That's why they elect them. And if those leaders do not make the right decisions according to those people, then guess what's going to happen? The people deliver their verdict in something that we have here called an election. So I am not as caught up with people saying, well, oh, what the majority thinks and what the majority doesn't think. And you know why I am not as caught up, caller? Because I have lived long enough to see that what was unpopular today becomes very popular tomorrow. Or vice versa, what was popular today becomes very unpopular tomorrow. I recall as a youngster when Four Seasons was coming, you know, and the number of people who did not want Four Seasons because white people going to take over. We can't go to the beach. We can't pick coconut. We can't catch crab. All of these things were being said. 35 years later, how many Nevisians would look at Four Seasons and really argue that it has not contributed significantly to the development of Nevis? So if it is that we govern purely by way of what the public is saying at a particular point in time, right? Even this very issue, caller, I know you said you didn't want to belabor it, but just let me make this final point. Even this very issue that we are discussing, the level of misinformation was at a fever pitch 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, whenever it was, right? People were saying, my goodness, is all this is what really happening in Nevis? Then what started to happen now? The information started to come out. The government started to share information. The developers started to share information. You know what started to happen? One by one, the misinformation was debunked. The myths were debunked. The outright lies were debunked. And the debate in Nevis now has shifted. I'm telling you because I'm out there. And fellows now who are saying, I believe, let me put it this way, it is best put by a town hall that we had with the young people, the sixth formers. One sixth former stood up and she said, prior to coming to this meeting this morning, I was vehemently opposed to this development. But having listened to the presentations and having got more information, she said that her position has changed. And so if I were to make a decision as a leader of Nevis, at a time when that young person was vehemently opposed, my decision would be to tell these developers categorically no. But here what the young lady said, with information, her position has evolved. So at what point am I as the leader to take my decision? Because people's opinions on matters change. Public sentiment changes. And a lot of what we're hearing now, people saying, well, what the public say about this, get the majority view before you proceed. How are you going to govern a country like that? And that is part of the thing. I believe, and while this goes a bit further than your question, I believe that as a government, there has been no proposed development in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm not the only person going to say Nevis. St. Kitts and Nevis, that it has this level of consultation with the public. And whilst I hear you, and the point I think is well made, that you don't have it in black and white and you don't have everything spelled out, capital letters, common letters, I hear you, and I think it's a good point that you've made. Nevertheless, the level of engagement on this particular proposal is unprecedented. It has never happened before. Right. And I think that that observation, I'm trying to make it because at the end of the day, you still hear people saying, well, what if most people don't want it? What if most, and I'm keep asking the question, how do you measure that? Do you do a poll? And if you do a poll, what does the poll tell you? Because even the pollsters will tell you a poll is only a snapshot of that day. So how do you determine? And I come back to my fallback position. Governments must govern. Leaders must lead. And at the end of the day, the people will render their verdict in something called an election. That's our democracy. That's how it works.
Well, Mr. Brantley, I thank you for your response to these questions. I know that you've had a lot of questions over the past 3 months, and I encourage you not to get weary in what you call well-doing. I just think that as in the spirit of public debate and public forum, that these are the pains that one agrees to when they do decide to make things public. And I do applaud you and your team for at least being a bit more receptive than one would have thought.
Well, caller, I thank you too, and I thank you for your call. I think that these calls are important. This engagement, whether it's town hall, phone, WhatsApp, whatever, Facebook, it doesn't matter to me. They're all important engagements because it shows that our people are interested. It shows, I think, an openness both on the part of government and the people, the governed and the governors. And it demonstrates, in my humble opinion, the finest that we can get in terms of democratic governance. We may not always agree, but at least we have a framework for a discussion. And I think that that is very important as well. So sometimes when I hear the criticism, oh, this is a big secret, they don't like this and they don't like that, I say, but let us celebrate the fact that at the very least we have the capacity and the room, the space to have a discussion. Because I think a lot of things that you and I do here, we take for granted. They don't exist elsewhere. And so I am actually grateful that I live in a Nevis where even though sometimes I may disagree, we have the right to say things and to engage. I believe that is very important. And so I thank you for your call because I think your call is part of that process. So thank you very much.
No problem. Next time I have a question, I'll call back in.
All right, great.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we're going to stick with the phones. We have about 5 minutes left. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Yeah, Premier Brantley is me again.
Yes.
Premier Brantley, it is my opinion, right, that investors look for places to invest where they can make the best profit on their investment. Not necessarily that government bring investors. I believe that government can create an environment that would encourage investors to come. Mm-hmm. But I find in these islands here, government ministers like to pound the chest and say they bring this investor and they bring that investor. But from what I have seen, it seemed to me like it's the investors who really look for areas where they think they can make the best return on their investment. I don't know, but that is my opinion. So when some people are going to say, oh, who you bringing people here for that? I bring these investors here. Well, I don't know, but from what I have seen and what I have read, most time investors will look to see where they can make the best return on the investment, and they'll go there.
Well,
now it's the government who will create that environment. I agree.
Right. And the government also has to be partner, because no investor come in, they cannot come without a government who is going to say, yes, we want to.
Yes, and I agree with that.
Right?
But I just say that because some people like to talk like if, oh, well, oh, the government, you know, if they're for it, then they say, oh, see me government bring that. But if they're against it, they say, oh, you are bringing them people, oh, this and that. So, yes, I agree that when the people come, they have to be a partnership. Anyway, good night.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see if we can take one more call. I don't know. We have about 2 minutes or so by my watch, maybe a minute. There's somebody's on the line. Let's do this quickly. Caller, you all, oh no? Thought somebody was there. All right, well, I thought I could take one more call and get in a final comment for the evening, but the phones aren't ringing and we're really running out of time. I think we now find ourselves, let me check my time here, 9:59. So we have 1 minute and the band is going to strike up. Let's take this call. Caller, you have 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, good night, Mr. Mark.
Yes, go ahead quickly.
Good night, good night. Yeah, I was saying, you know the nice, you know, because Antibiotic make the most nice. Some of our people in Nevis, they never travel out. If you get back way in St. Vincent, that's what keeping the economy in St. Vincent alive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So don't shoot yourself, man. Let's go forward.
Okay.
I'm with you.
All right.
100%.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for the call. I think that we've really come to the end of our time. It is 10 o'clock, and we know that here we take time very seriously. So for all of you who called, all of you who are part of the show, I want to say thank you so much. Very thought-provoking calls tonight. I really, really appreciate each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. This is democracy at work. It may be messy. Sometimes we don't like it, but this is democracy at work. And I'm proud to live in a Nevis where we can have environments and forums like this where we can have a discussion without being disrespectful to each other. That's our show. The banner struck up. It means we have to go. This is rebroadcast tomorrow right here on Von Radio at 1 p.m. Tomorrow we have the Nevis Island Assembly meets to discuss some bills, so please tune in. That starts at 10. That's our show. Good night and God bless you.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.